All right, so our NTSB case study is done for the accident that occurred in 1956 over the Grand Canyon where two aircraft collided. You can see here in this picture it shows the crash sites for each of those aircraft, which unfortunately killed all of those that were in each aircraft. So the overview of the NTSB investigation here in this with this accident. So it involved United Flight 718 from LAX to Chicago, and then TWA Flight 2 from LAX to Kansas City. The United Flight left on time. It was Green Airway 5 direct to Palm Springs Junction, Needles, and Painted Desert, and they were at a cruising altitude of 21,000 feet. The last report to ATC was at the Needle waypoint. With the TWA flight from LAX to Kansas City, there was a late departure and they departed 3 minutes before the United flight. They were cleared for the Amber Airway 5, Green Airway 2, Daggett, then crossing Painted Desert. They were at a cruising altitude of 19,000 feet and requested the change in altitude to avoid a thunderstorm. And the last report to ATC at Mojave Lake at 1,000 feet above clouds, which would be at 21,000 feet on Painted Desert. The NTSB investigation, little to no equipment to use like we have today. It was the first major airline accident in history, and there were no flight recordings to review either. So the accident connection ATC, radar in remote areas was not available. Both pilots were assigned preferred airway and waypoints. Pilot of both flights remained in contact with LA Control Center. Controllers had no way to visually spot both aircraft locations. The TWA flight switched to Flight 2 switched to VFR after request was denied, which was obviously a cause. The TWA was also advised about United 718, but United Flight 718 was not advised about TWA altering their path, and ATC contacted both flights after being 20 minutes overdue for the waypoint check. And the role of ATC and the safety implications. So the role of ATC in this accident is interesting because the accident was caused due to the lack thereof, due to the lack of air traffic control. At the time of the accident, aircraft would rarely speak with air traffic controllers while en route, and a large portion of airspace was uncontrolled. And the aircraft at the time could also request to switch to visual flight rules, and that's what happened, to fly to 1,000 feet above the clouds, which now allowed the aircraft to solely rely on their visuals to fly safely. Both aircraft would both be flying at the same altitude and on the same route, but now no longer in controlled airspace, and using VFR, avoiding the collision was up to the pilots, and ATC was no longer involved. The controller who was in primary contact with the aircraft stated that it was not the policy of ATC to give traffic advisories outside of controlled airspace, stating that such information would be of little to no value. ATC also had no authority of the aircraft either way. The air traffic controller, who knew that the aircraft were on collision courses, did not make the aircraft aware of that at all. At the time, however, it was not the responsibility at all to control aircraft using VFR, of aircraft that were using VFR and who are also outside of the controlled airspace. And because of this accident, ATC and radar usage was improved and increased significantly, and a request to fly at VFR for larger aircraft is now an extremely rare occurrence. So the NTSB final probable cause, so there was a 3.5 minute delay that caused the aircraft to arrive to the point of collision 3.5 minutes later than anticipated, and the NTSB still states that no definite conclusion has been reached as to why this delay occurred. It's possible that buildups over the Grand Canyon and those may have that there were buildups over the Grand Canyon and those may have required deviations that would have affected the flight time. It's unknown whether or not the aircraft started on a collision course because of weather or to sightsee over the Grand Canyon, but it is known that ATC was not communicating with the aircraft. As described before, the air traffic controller who knew that the aircraft were on collision courses did not make the aircraft aware of that at all, but at the time, it was not the responsibility at all for ATC to control aircraft using VFR and outside the controlled airspace. The NTSB did rule that it was not the responsibility of the controller to give that traffic advisory. The NTSB ruled that as the aircraft were in a VFR condition, there is no evidence to suggest that the weather was outside VFR minimums. Therefore, it was ruled that the pilots had the primary responsibility to see and avoid other aircraft. They had the time and space to do that, and they did not. However, it was also ruled that it really was the fault of no one's, as the proper technology and resources were not available at ATC or the pilots, causing the immense changes in the industry. A micro summary from the NTSB states that the mid-air collision between these two airliners led to the birth of the modern air traffic control system. And this is just clear, as it seems to be the main cause of the accident was the lack of ATC. Conclusion: United captain could be blamed because he did not see and avoid, but the TWA and the TWA captain could be, or pilot could be blamed for switch to VFR. ATC did not let United Flight 718 know that TWA Flight 2 changed to VFR and would be flying near the course. The accident happened because of an inadequate ATC system. What's happened since: nationwide radar system developed, new traffic and collision avoidance systems invented, and new rules and regulations. And those are our references, and that's it.